Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So I'm driving into work this morning and I'm listening to the radio as I often do. And I bounce around. I listen to sports. I listen to some of the little morning talk shows. And this morning I happened to be listening to conservative radio. And they were talking about the elections and they were hammering Kamala Harris and talking about her, the way that they do. But then they went into this thing about DEI hires. DEI hires, diversity, equity, and inclusion. We have to be aware, or should be aware, of some of the tactics of racism and white supremacy and maintaining the status quo. And one of the ways of that is to commandeer words and remaster the context and definition of those words and then use it in such a way, oftentimes, that the original meaning is lost. If you notice, again, and we're talking recent history, they attacked critical race theory. Critical race theory, if you know anything about it, it's the opposite of what they made it out to be on, on the conservative side. If you look at the word woke, they attack the word woke. And they use it and pounded it into the heads of the people as this negative thing. But we understand in the African American community historically that word woke had a certain context and meaning. That it meant that a person was awake, that a person was cognizant of the situation. They understood, they were aware, they were in alignment with reality. But the term woke has now been, again, commandeered by exogenous forces outside of our community, reworded, and now it means something negative. Same thing with diversity, equity, and inclusion. Diversity, equity, and inclusion levels the playing field. Historically, a historically lopsided playing field in all aspects of reality. The playing field has always been tilted, skewed toward one side versus the other, and there has always been systemic and institutional policies in place to, again, maintain that status quo, that equilibrium of power, leaning one side versus the other. So now they're hammering diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I can almost guarantee you that there's going to be some presidential policies that are going to come down, that are going to outlaw diversity, equity, and inclusion. Again, we understand, if you just understand the word, the definitions of the word, diversity, to represent many different types of things. Doesn't matter what it is, there's diversity. It's not just one thing. Equity, to have equality or fairness. And inclusion, to have a seat at the table, to be included in policy, to be included in the decision-making process, to play a part in policy or whatever the case may be that's going to affect whatever group, demographic, or situation. So you have to ask yourself, who would be against diversity, equity, and inclusion? Because diversity, equity, and inclusion has been redefined as a person who's less than qualified to be given a position simply because they're from a marginalized or periphery group. That's basically how it's been remastered. It's been redefined as a person who's less than qualified to be given a position that they don't really qualify for, that they shouldn't have. But that's not the reality of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So beware of where you get your definitions from. Beware of where you get your definitions from. And make sure that you look at the origin of words, especially these, these big words that you hear hammered down by groups outside of your own community. Because I can almost guarantee you that the way that you're hearing it now is not the way that it was in the beginning. So that's just my thought for the day as I drive into work and listen to conservative radio. But, that's par for the course. That's the tactics that are used. That's just what they do. So it's not surprising. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.